done without administering the patient the dose of anesthesia. A statement that might be relatable to today's session. Good morning, everyone. I am Siddesh Dharak from Btt CE third year.
And I am Smith Pandya from Pharmatech second year. And we welcome you all today on this fabulous Saturday morning to an interesting session on the topic ArthKranti. We are pleased to be with you today and to have the chance to introduce our guest speaker, Ms. Shilpa Yeolekar, who is a gold medalist from Shivaji University in PE Electronics and has also done her MA in Economics from the IGNOU. She has 14 years of work experience in TCS, where she worked in various technical and managerial roles. She has also worked with Westin for 5 years as technical lead in functional safety domain and has been associated with ArthKranti since 2005 and has held many key responsibilities during her association.
Along with Ms. Yeolekar, we also have our second guest, Mr. Amod Phalke, who is a BE Mechanical graduate from College of Engineering, Pune. He has also completed MTech in Manufacturing Engineering from the prestigious IIT Bombay. He initially worked in VJCS for 18 years. He is currently working in Arthakranti Knowledge Creation Cell. Good morning, ma'am. Good morning, sir. How are you doing today?
Yeah, doing good. Good morning.
How are you doing, ma'am, sir?
How are you doing?
I am doing great.
So, just to give our audience a background, Arthakranti is an organization in which we all should be deeply interested because it has created a huge impact on the economy of our country. So, sir, ma'am, could you please elaborate a little more on that?
Yeah. Before we start, we would just like to know you all might have visited Arthakranti website. So anyone of you can tell what Arthakranti is doing so that we can take that particular point and then we can start with the discussion.
We are aware that ArthKranti tries to solve social and economic issues by suggesting multiple government and political parties for the development and welfare of people. It also suggested demonetization.
Siddesh, you are not clearly audible. I mean, your clarity is there, but the voice volume is low.
Little. I mean, I don't know.
So, ma'am, we are aware that ArthKranti is an organization which tries to solve social and economic problems and tries to work for the welfare of the country as a whole. And it has suggested government multiple ways to solve ongoing issues and especially the demonetization.
Okay. Okay, great. Yeah. Siddesh, actually, our idea is that as we what we do is like we will make a small presentation which actually talks about that, what ArthKranti is about, what ArthKranti is doing, what it focuses on, and what it doesn't work on, basically. So, shall we start? Do we have the participants to begin with?
Yes, sir. Please do, sir.
Yes. Yeah. So
okay. Are we audible to you?
Yes, sir.
Okay, great.
So what we would like to do is like we will like to give you a brief presentation, maybe 30 minutes or so, and then we can take on question and answers. So that you are aware about what ArthKranti is doing, what is ArthKranti's philosophy, and what are ArthKranti proposals.
Yes, ma'am.
So we would like to share our screen.
Yeah.
I hope that option is available to you, ma'am.
Yeah.
Yes.
It is there. Entire screen. Presentation.
Is it visible now?
No, ma'am.
Siddesh?
1 second.
No, ma'am, it is not visible yet.
Do you see a slide now?
No, sir.
No, ma'am.
Okay.
Yes.
1 second. Let's do it again. Yeah, I think now it should be.
Yes, sir. Yes, ma'am. It is visible.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, we both are ArthKranti volunteers and working for quite a long time with ArthKranti. And then we would like to briefly tell you what ArthKranti is, and then we'll discuss the philosophy and presentation with pictorial representations. So it will help, or it will be easy for to understand what Arthakranti is doing. So we'll start with what Arthakranti is. The term Arthakranti itself, if we look into the Devanagari script, Artha is economics and Kranti is complete revolution. So Arthakranti is trying to bring in complete economic rejuvenation. It has different proposals to enable this economic rejuvenation. And if we look at the individual behavior of any person, if we look or if we think it's affected by two things. First one is the individual nature or character, that's what we call vritti in Marathi. And the second one is vyavastha, or that is system. So a person's individual social behavior is influenced by vritti and vyavastha. And if we look,
What I may add to this is, we'll just give very small examples. For example, I am a person from starting from my home in Pune, for example, towards Bombay, and I start in my vehicle, and given an opportunity, I will jump the signal in Pune and reach the expressway. But the person, and then when I reach the expressway, when I reach the toll naka, I will stop my vehicle, pay the toll, and then move ahead. So the person is the same who was there in Pune jumping the signal, and who stops the vehicle, pays the toll, and then moves ahead. The person is the same, but the behavior changes based on the environment or the system or the framework around. So that tells you about the influence of vritti, the character, as well as the system on an individual's behavior in a society. Yeah.
yeah, and if we look at the typical distribution of this behavior, we can see that it can be broadly divided into three things. We typically call it as Six Sigma or natural distribution law. And in that, we see that 90% is Prakriti, that is nature, 3% is Vikruti plus Sanskruti, so 1.5% Vikruti and 1.5% Sanskruti. We also see it as a Six Sigma. 97% is normal distribution, and the other three is uh, distribution other than normal distribution. So what Arthakranti believes that the social behavior or the natural behavior of individuals is affected by systems. 97% people work or operate according to the systems, and remaining 3% they don't need systems. 1.5% of this 3% system, they always behave in a good manner in spite of good systems or bad systems, and the other 1.5 they always behave irrationally, illogically, even though the systems are good or bad. So what Arthakranti thinks like, or what Arthakranti do is like it's trying to design system for the Prakriti so that 97% people can follow the systems. Arthakranti's focus out of this vritti and vyavastha is on vyavastha. So whatever Arthakranti is trying to do, it's not trying to bring change in an individual's behavior or nature, but it's trying to design systems so that normally the people who are following Prakriti will be able to follow good systems. And in this process, Arthakranti is not interested in complaining or alleging about the systems, but it's trying to analyze the issues and come up with systemic solutions.
Yeah. What Arthakranti is driven by? I mean, what are the driving principles or the force which is, kind of the motive behind all the proposals that Arthakranti has come about so far with? First is that principled, prosperous, and peaceful living for everyone. If we analyze, I mean, or if we just see, and if we talk to many people, I mean, rather any person, what he or she strives for is that, you are looking to live a life which is based on certain principles, where you don't want to violate those or compromise on those, you need prosperity, and you need also need peace. And there is a role of system in enabling this. That is why Arthakranti is working towards that. Beyond that, Arthakranti is also, one of the major points Arthakranti works on is enabling dignified life and graceful evening for everyone. What is meant by dignified life? Basically, किसी को किसी के सामने मजबूर न होना पड़े, किसी को मजबूर करना ना पड़े, लाचार न होना पड़े, ऐसी जो अवस्था होगी वो डिग्निफाइड लाइफ की है। और हम अगर संविधान की अगर बात करते हैं, प्रियम्बल की, तो वहां भी जो मौलिक अधिकार बताए गए हैं, the fundamental rights or the fundamental things that the guiding principles in our constitution, so dignity is one of them. So even the system has a role to ensure that the dignity of individuals is taken care of. And graceful evening, by that we mean that, typically for the old age people, they need not be at the mercy of even their children or anybody for that matter. And as we say, the government को जैसे हम बोलते हैं कि वो अगर मराठी में बात करते हैं तो माँ बाप सरकार अगर हम बोलते हैं तो गवर्नमेंट इज काइंड ऑफ अ केयर टेकर. So in this government is basically it is a kind of the system's representation. So the system should take care of everyone, not only for dignity but also for the graceful evening. So we work towards that. We have specific proposals to enable those things. And Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam, which is, I mean, we can say that this has been an ancient philosophy of India, and for every Indian, somewhere it is a part of RNA, DNA, Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam. We have at least heard about it, and it's no foreign concept for any Indian. And as such, we will not claim that, it is something which Arthakranti has come about, but we believe in that and we work towards that. However, beyond believing in that, Arthakranti has certain proposals at the global level by which we can realize Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam.
Yeah. So in this process, Arthakranti believes that not only 135 crore Indians are part of our family or our family, but entire world is family, and from that perspective, it's time to develop solutions. Yeah. So now, yes. So now what we will do is like we'll just try to analyze what is the state of current economy, and we have come up with a flashpoint presentation which Amod will explain.
Having given the background, let's now one by one very briefly look at some certain things. Like this animation is one of the most important points of the presentation, I would say. So and very interesting as well it is.
It's visible, right?
Yes, ma'am. The animation is visible.
Okay. So what the picture in front of you shows is we have made an analogy of a multi-storied building. Just like a multi-storied building has a bottom sump where the say corporation water supply is there, and there is an overhead tank, and from the bottom sump there is a pumping system which carries water from there to the overhead tank, and from the overhead tank to the various levels water is supplied. There are pipelines laid out. So what this is analogous to? So the multi-storied building, we say, is that it is like an economy, the pictorial representation. The overhead tank is the government treasury. The bottom sump is the national economy. The pipelines or the pumping system on the left hand side, which takes water from the bottom sump to the overhead tank, is nothing but the taxation system. So and on the right hand side you have the pipelines providing water, which is nothing but the expenditure side. So left hand side is revenue side, right hand side is the expenditure side, and the various levels that are shown in the building, they are nothing but the various expenditure heads of the government in certain priority. So, for example, interest on external debt, or what we may call as debt servicing, running cost of running government, national security, then infrastructure, needs of common man, etc. So those things are they are the various levels of the building. So what we see is that we see that the overhead tank is not really filled up. So there are certain pipelines on the right hand side, the expenditure side, which are never going to get water probably until the overhead tank gets filled up. So we start inspecting. So we see what is the problem. So we see that the revenue side pipelines or the taxation system is so complex, so twisted, so corroded and everything, that there is so much leakage from there that however number of taxes or number of things that you apply, there is a leakage, and the overhead tank or the government treasury never gets filled up. It's no exaggeration, or it's no imagination. We have an FRBM Act which actually talks about the deficit, what should be the limit on the deficit of the government. So the very fact that you have a law like FRBM Act, which is necessary to put a ceiling on the deficit of the government, tells you that we have kind of assumed that we will never have neutral budgets where the expenditure is met by the revenue earned. We will always have a gap between the expenditure, which will be always more than the revenue that the government will earn, which is a fundamental flaw in the taxation system. Let me explain at this point that why I say so, or why we say so, because whenever we see that a government presents a budget in the parliament, for example, the central government, so what it does is it's essentially an expenditure plan for the year, and the expenditure plan is first presented, various heads on which the government wants to do the expenditure, and then it gets the approval for that, and after laying out the expenditure plan, government designs the taxation system to meet that expenditure, or to meet that amount, to do that expenditure. So if we see, by design, there cannot be any flaw, or there cannot be any gap between what you spend or plan to spend and what you are going to earn, because the taxation is designed looking at a certain target. However, if you look at the several years of budgets of any government, for that matter, whether it is state government or the central government, they are always deficit budgets. And as I said, there is an FRBM Act also. So typical ceiling is 3.5% of GDP. As it is, the numbers, you look at the numbers, our tax to GDP ratio is about 12%, not even 12%. And the freedom given for deficit is about 3.5%. So you see that almost 1/3 revenue of the target you are not ever going to meet. That is an assumption, which is a fundamental flaw according to us. Then let's move further. So what some important things I will like to show, like the leakage on the revenue side, that is nothing but the black money. Very definition of black money is that the money which evades the taxation. And that's all thanks to the complex taxation system. There is a leakage on the right hand side also, which is called as the corruption. So apparently both look alike, the leakages on both sides. However, there is a fine difference between the two. The leakage on the left hand side or the revenue side, there are two characteristics associated. It is neither accountable nor traceable. While the one on the other right hand side, the corruption, which is the expenditure side leakage, it is very much accountable. However, it is not traceable, just like that on the other side. So both are not traceable. However, the revenue side leakage is not even accountable. So no traceability, no accountability on the left hand side, whereas no accountability on the right hand side. These are the characteristics of for the two leakages. These two leakages further form what we may call as a parallel economy. Let's see what happens further. Looking at the less filled government treasury, or what the government thinks is that, okay, let us apply certain measures like FDI, FII, SEZs, and what it does is it pumps water in the bottom sum. However, until the taxation system is corrected, the more water you pump or the put in the bottom sum, that much more black money is going to get generated, and the overhead tank remains unfilled. And I may also mention that many times this tanker, the FDI, FII, etc., it takes water from this parallel economy itself. That is nothing but money laundering. That's some finer aspect which we can talk about later on also. Let's quickly move on. Who joins hands, or what are the part of this parallel economy? So this parallel economy, becomes an underground economy. It is like an invisible thing, but it operates very well. And what are the partners or the parties who work with it? They are corrupt politics, corrupt bureaucracy, but both these, they do not produce that. But who produces this? They are corrupt trade, businesses and services. And what we see is that since the government treasury doesn't have enough water, it is never filled up. There are so many things, for example, needs of common man, where the government fails to provide the necessary support. And the common man, because it doesn't get the water or the money supply from the government, it has to stand in front of this parallel economy, which is nothing but things like private money lenders. So the common man at this end, which is shown here on the left hand side bottom, is unorganized, unprivileged common man, which also includes our farmers. And what this parallel economy means, or the private money lending means, if we look at the simple interest rates in the banking system, they will be about 13%, 14% per annum. However, the private money lenders will charge you about 2%, 3% per month, which is about 24%, 36% per year. And for lack of any other option, the common man has to stand there. And then we see that the farmers committing suicides and all that, even the small businessmen. Let's see what happens further. This corrupt politics, corrupt bureaucracy and trade and businesses, the parallel economy, what it feeds basically. It feeds nothing but organized crime, antisocial, anti-national activities. And if we see further, this symbolic face of antisocial and anti-national elements is much bigger or stronger than the government treasury. So actually it depicts the current reality in a way that the law and order system which is implemented by the government, it fails to provide a feeling of security. For example, the common man is very much reluctant to enter a police station or enter any judicial process, because they are never assured. They have no faith, we can say, roughly. I mean, roughly in the sense for majority. We always, अगर पुलिस स्टेशन में नहीं जाना है तो बाहर का बाहर मिट जाए तो अच्छा रहेगा, कोर्ट मैटर में क्यों करना है, नहीं करना है, हम ऐसे ही खत्म कर दे क्या. So we do not have belief in that those systems, but the people who should have a fear of those systems, they are absolutely they have no fear of that. That is the situation where we find ourselves in. Another manifestation of this parallel economy is that we see in elections, where the election expenses, we see that on the right hand side there is no pipeline laid out for political system or elections. So whatever money is required for running the party cadre, the party, the running the elections, all that money, where it comes from? It all comes from this parallel economy. And then we imagine about or think about, you know, breaking that nexus between the parallel economy and the politicians. Until we have provision, white money provision from the government treasury for the political system, for the elections, that nexus we cannot ever break. And this money comes from there, and you know, the nexus continues. So that's the current reality. Then okay, we have gone about half, we have about half an hour's time we have gone through. Maybe another 5 minutes we will take, you know, to tell you like what Arthakranti's solution, what Arthakranti proposal is about, looking at this current reality, and then we can open the forum for discussion. So as we have seen the pictorial representation, what we see is that the current taxation system is a proven failure, whether it is for the local government or the central or the state governments. So we say that the first point of Arthakranti proposal, let us withdraw this taxation system completely. What it means is that all central, state and local government taxes, direct, indirect, all of them be withdrawn, except customs and import duties. They are for a different purpose. They are not for revenue. They are for protecting the domestic industry. So keeping those aside or keeping those intact, rest of the taxation system be withdrawn. That is the first point of the proposal. Then we say that, okay, then how the government will get the revenue? So for that we say that every transaction routed through a bank will attract a certain deduction in appropriate percentage as a bank transaction tax, a single point tax deducted at source. And what we say is that, for example, 2%, how it operates, this will be applied only on the credit end. The person or the entity which receives the money, that will be liable to this bank transaction tax, not the person who pays the amount. Or the debit end is not it is not applied with that BTT, bank transaction tax. Further, we say that the deducted amount will be credited to different government levels like central, state and local in certain percentages. For example, 0.7%, 0.6% and 0.35%. Next, transacting bank. This is a very important point. What we say is that the transacting bank which does this important work of deduction and distribution will also have a share in this deducted amount, say 0.35%. And this opens up an altogether new revenue source for the banking system. Further, we say that the third point, the cash transactions will not attract any tax. However, fourth point of the proposal, you may note that this particular proposal came into being in 1999, when the 1000 rupee note did not exist. So then, since then, we have been saying that we need to withdraw high denomination currency, say above 50 rupees. That we were saying in 1999, but for example, in 2022, we feel that, or we understand that, okay, no, 100 rupee note is very much required for day-to-day transactions. So keeping that, all other higher denominations can be withdrawn. And the fifth point of the proposal is that the government should make legal provisions to restrict cash transactions up to a certain limit, say for example 2000 rupees. So what that means is that as such the government is not going to monitor or track your cash transactions. What is the meaning of that is that, for example, you do cash transactions, you can do any cash transactions of any volume, any amount, but it is at your own risk. only when you want to enjoy a legal protection for that transaction, you better go through a bank. You may better go through banks. So, for example, I purchase a mobile costing say 10,000 rupees, which is beyond this limit, and I do a cash transaction. The mobile works for say 6 months time, and suddenly develops a glitch. I approach the shopkeeper, and somehow it doesn't cooperate, and I have to approach the consumer court, say. So what the court is going to look at first is, okay, what is the amount of transaction? So 10,000 rupees done in cash. Okay, your case doesn't stand. So you pay for the government facilities or the infrastructure, and you derive the benefits of that. As simple as that.
Yeah, out of these 5 points, if we remember in 2016, demonetization exercise took place, and one point related to withdrawal of high denomination. This particular point was partially implemented in demonetization.
Yeah. So
after Arthakranti implementation, the scenario will look like this.
you remember the picture shown in the earlier animation where the government treasury is ever showing deficit. However, what would be the scenario post Arthakranti proposal implementation? So there will be three strong pillars which will raise the national economy, which are those: the currency compression, the commission on transaction to banks, and a legal provision to restrict high value cash transactions.
We discussed all these points as Arthakranti proposal in previous slide, and the second, the BTT was also the actual proposal or one point of this 5-point proposal, implementation of bank transaction tax.
So what is the effect of that is a well-banked national economy. So it's like a tall, I mean, very strong storage or kind of thing from where you can draw the taxes or the bank transaction tax. So which will take care of not only the central government treasury, the state governments, but also the local bodies. And although we design this system, there will be certain areas, for example, the local bodies or with even certain states. We have often heard about the Bimaru states. So there will be a disparity between the places, the states. So to take care of that, the finance commissions will continue to operate, and they have also been shown in the picture. And beyond that point, we also show that a portion will also go towards what we call as the global tax for global governance. The climate change, terrorism, all these things are very much real. We are seeing we are experiencing those everywhere across the world. And to counter those or to take care of those, what we propose is that there should be a global governance, rather we say a global parenthood kind of mechanism, and that will be founded, or that can be very well supported by what we will say as a bank transaction tax. A fifth component of the bank transaction tax will contribute towards this global tax. So not only believing in Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam, but also contributing towards that is very much possible through bank transaction tax. And this can very well be India's initiative. India can have pioneering efforts in that direction.
It will also assure dignity for all the globizens. It will help to reduce poverty, eliminate hunger and other things with this particular tax component. So now I think we have broadly covered Arthakranti philosophy. We have also discussed first Arthakranti proposal, which was designed in way back in 1999. There are other proposals also, but I think we'll stop here. This is a logical point where we can start with our discussion.
Sir, ma'am, this was such a fantastic depiction of the current sad and complex state of our economy, and such a simple solution that ArthKranti is trying to propose. So, ma'am, we have a few questions lined up. So,
Yeah.
since demonetization was one of the biggest recent events that happened to the economy of our country, what was the motive of ArthKranti suggesting this to the government, and how and when did it start?
Okay. To answer that question, I will again use. Okay, we are not sharing. One second.
Yes, sir. Screen is visible, sir.
Okay. So we will show you a few slides which will, make it very clear what is the logic behind, going for withdrawal of higher denominations. So the chart in front of you, the table in front of you shows various countries. In first column, their per capita income, the per person per year income in that country, highest denomination in that country in the third column, and the division of per capita income and highest denomination in the last column. So just for example, if we take the case of United States, the per capita income is about $65,000. To spend that, the highest denomination in US is $100. So the division is 650. When we similar are the ratios or the divisions for UK, Japan, or several other countries. But when we come to India, our per capita income is about 1,30,000 rupees. As we speak today, 2,000 rupees being the highest denomination, we are what is the division in our case? It is 65. So there is, there is some misfit here. So to spend that income, we have much higher denomination, and the inconsistency doesn't stop there. This is another chart. If I simply show you this chart, it is very difficult to understand. Okay, what are the things shown in that? But you may just note the last columns. They depict the amount of value contained in 500, 1000 and 2000 rupee notes in respective years. So we will see that in 99, 2000, there was no 1000 rupee note. It was introduced in 2001 when it contained about 4,000 crore rupees. But at the time of demonetization in 2015-16, the amount of value contained in 1000 rupee notes was about 6.3 lakh crore rupees. 6.3 lakh crore rupees or 6.3 trillion rupees. And that was withdrawn in 2015-16. Same about 500 rupee notes, it is about 8 lakh crore rupees. We will show you those things in the form of pie charts later, but we will see what has been the effect of demonetization through pie charts rather. But before that, why these higher denominations are not wanted, not desirable? There are certain technical reasons. One is, for example, the cost of printing, or when the RBI brings about these currency notes in circulation, what is the cost of printing? Average cost is about 4 rupees to 5 rupees per denomination. But if the endorsed value could be as high as 1000 rupee or 2000 rupees now. So this provides a huge premium for producing the counterfeit currency. That was one of the major reasons. That is one thing. Another thing is that looking at the disparity in India, a huge percentage of population, for them, there is a statistics shown here. The poverty line, 47 rupees urban and 32 rupees rural area, daily disposable income, that is. So based on that, about 30% of population lies below poverty. But what it essentially tells us is that for a major population, like 70-80% of our population, even 100 rupee notes is good enough for day-to-day survival, day-to-day transactions. However, if we look at the scenario in 2015-16, these 100 rupee notes consumed about, or they contained only about 10% of the money. 500 rupee notes about 47% and 1000 rupee notes about 38%. So together they made about 85%. So while you are 70-80% population, for them it is irrelevant. So what these higher denominations are doing actually, now we can understand, okay, why these leakages that were shown in the pictorial representation, both sides, how they become so easy, tax evasion as well as the corruption. It is all thanks to these higher denominations. The cash transactions leave no trace, they are not traceable, and therefore you cannot have any control on anything that is established on these cash transactions or the denominations. So let's come to what is the scenario today. So the picture in March 2021, the data is published every September. So the data is available for last year March. So the total money supply is about 28 lakh crore rupees. Out of that, 500 rupee notes have again reached about 70% value, whereas the 2000 rupee notes, what we could be a bit happy about is that if we look at the scenario in 2017, 2000 rupee notes accounted for about 49% of the total money in 2017. But gradually, 2000 rupee notes contribution has been decreasing from 49% to now it is just 17%. So higher denomination, we can say, as far as the highest denomination is concerned, we have reduced there. However, about 500 rupee notes, still it is a question mark. So what Arthakranti, it is very technical. There have been books written by even people from US Treasury and all those people, the curse of cash and things like that. The the cash transactions, what are the evils associated with that and all that. Then fake currency. So considering all these points, we always felt that higher denominations, they are rather more than helping, harming the economy. And both ways, like they are yielding less revenue to the government, helping anti-social, anti-national activities, disabling the law and order system, or impacting the law and order system. So for all those reasons, higher denominations were to be withdrawn one day, and that step was taken. However, Arthakranti had proposed, we always felt that withdrawal of high denomination currency was like a major operation, and for any operation you need an anesthesia. To carry out any operation, you cannot do on a just like that. So for that, what the anesthesia what we recommended was a tax relief. So we when we presented the proposal to the government, the transition plan from the current system to the new system, we said that while you withdraw gradually in steps of say 6 months, first say withdraw 1000 rupee notes, and then you at the same time you withdraw certain central government taxes and introduce a fractional bank transaction tax. So that was our recommendation. However, we believe that there were certain compelling reasons which the government knows best, which made the government took the steps in the way they took in 2016.
So one doubt that I have in regards to BTT is, sir, UPI has made smaller amount or smaller transactions very easy without any taxation. So how do you think UPI should fit into this BTT system?
Yeah, very good question. Basically, what we see is that we can imagine, for example, if the demonetization step did not take place in 2016, possibly the type of digitalization that we see around us, even the vegetable vendors or for that matter anywhere, QR code. Even the auto rickshaw walas and everybody, they are now having these QR codes, and digital transactions. That infrastructure has come about. So that step was very much necessary, and that has been an enabler, we believe. And the one point of the proposal, where we say that cash transactions will not attract any tax. There is a reason behind that. We purposely want that the weaker section of the society, which today by way of indirect taxes cannot escape the taxation. For example, even if I am an auto rickshaw wala, I have to pay indirect tax, which is applied on say CNG or petrol or diesel, whatever I use. So we believe that the weaker sections of the society, they should be able to we should give them a tax relief. So for small value cash transactions, they will not attract any tax. So that is the reason. And also there are reasons that the technology has not yet reached the complete length and breadth of our country. There is illiteracy. Given those things, as everywhere the technology will reach, the digitalization will reach, where they can also, not only financial inclusion will take place, but they will also like to contribute to the government. It is not that they always want to enjoy the protection or the these what we say, escape the taxation. They also want to contribute. They are also very much they love our country as much as we do. So we also,
and this bank transaction tax will be applicable for digital transactions as well at recipient. So it's not only for the transactions which are happening through banks, but it's also for all the digital payments.
Yeah.
So you think that eventually UPI will have to have some sort of taxation?
Basically, what we say is that when the proposal came into being in 1999, even the banking was much limited. The core banking and all those things started developing later on. And now if we look at the scenario, thanks to say demonetization or the core banking, the connected networks, and even our postal banking, it is connected. So in that scenario, basically what we see is that the bank transaction tax, now it will also include the digital transactions. And anyway, like for example, any taxation system, for example, today GST, if you are saying, say, paying, say, for example, if you have read the news recently, even the essential items, they are going to apply certain percentage of GST on that, and there is a strike today by the merchants to oppose that. So government is always aiming to generate the revenues, which is very right in its own perspective. But what we believe is that it should be a painless thing for the taxpayer. So, and that can be realized by means of, if we spread the the tax incidence. If the tax net is very wide, the pain will be very little, or it will be a painless affair for every taxpayer. Everybody will contribute. And that's where we say that, for example, 2% bank transaction tax. So just to give you an idea, today, if we compare the things, I have one slide, maybe I can just show you, rather than speaking, I will rather show you that slide, where it shows you the bank transactions. Okay, yeah. Is the screen visible? I mean the slide?
Yes, sir.
Okay, yeah. So what we see is that what these numbers are showing is that for respective year 2014, 15 and 21, 22, what has been the volume of bank transaction in lakh crore rupees or the trillion rupees? In 2014-15, only 1100 lakh crore rupees was the volume through banking system, whereas it has more than doubled in 2021-22. So that is one of the things that we can see. And if we take this number, 23 lakh crore rupees, and apply 2% bank transaction tax on that, so 46 lakh crore rupees, which exceeds the tax revenue of all the governments taken together today in our country. Yeah.
Now, I would like to know what are the major challenges in implementing the bankless digital transaction tax (BTT).
Challenges in implementing digital.
Pardon me, cashless, you mean to say?
No, sir. I mean, what are the major challenges in implementing the bankless digital transaction tax (BTT), as we were discussing?
Arthakranti has always, I mean, the Arthakranti's motive, or the what it has been promoting is, it has never been saying that cashless economy. It is saying taxless economy, taxless less cash economy. It is promoting, and as we will see that if we go for smaller denominations, for whether for convenience or for inconvenience, we can say people will go to bank transactions, and there the volume of bank transactions will increase, and even a smaller percentage will yield a larger tax revenue. Talking about the challenges, for any innovation, there will not be any precedence anywhere, and it is an innovative system that we have been proposing. And like any innovation, it is facing challenges from the proponents of the prevailing taxation system, we can say. However, the merits of this bank transaction tax are it is so superior on various on all the, say, canons of taxation, that it is going to be a reality. And for example, a small NGO like ours, which came up with this proposal in 1999, and the topmost body in our country, called NIPFP, studied this proposal. Although it studied in its own fashion and in its own ways this particular proposal, and that itself, I mean, it proved that okay, 100 rupees is good enough for our countries as the highest denomination, but it raised certain questions about the bank transaction tax. But we still see that it is a step towards the things happening in that direction. For example, from cash to bank, we have started moving very slowly toward in that direction. GST is also one of the ways we can say that it is very much based on the digitalized network, and we are moving towards that. But there are certain factors the government should look at. For example, tax to GDP ratio in any developed country, or countries where you have very good social security, or where people are very well taken care of, or the social welfare is very much taken care of, we will see that typically that is more than 25% of the GDP, tax to GDP ratio. We are not even half of that mark yet. So the government may take pride today that okay, our GST revenues are breaking the records every month. However, true that may be, the real goal or the real target, we are very much off that the government should realize and accept one day. Basically, for a country like ours, where there is so much disparity, whereas so much population is below poverty, so much disparity in our country. For that, social security mechanisms need to be very, very strong, and that will be enabled only by a very strong taxation system. And 12% of tax to GDP ratio is not at all going to be enough for that. Yeah.
So we have a question from the chat. Are there any countries at present having similar or same taxation or economic structure implemented? If yes, how successful it has been?
Yeah, very good question. See, we came up with this proposal in 1999. There was another proposal parallelly which came up in USA by two, three people, and there was one more proposal which was implemented in Brazil for 12, 13 years. It was implemented it began in 1995 in Brazil. However, and I mean the person who took the initiative, who was behind that, was an economist himself, Harvard educated professor, and also a bit of political connections also he had. So he could realize bank transaction tax or implement it in Brazil. However, there were certain differences, or maybe the implementation compared to us. They did not go for any action on the currency. They also have very high denomination currency like ours. Their taxation system is equally or more complex than India's taxation system. Their population, though not as much as ours, is comparable. Like they also have about 20-21 crore people in their country. So there are comparable challenges, comparable things there. But given the fact that that was introduced as another tax, as an additional tax to the existing taxation system, and given the fact that higher denominations existed, the natural tendency was that to evade that, escape that tax, and as such, there was a big trend towards that. Yet there was a very good data generated out of that in Brazil, and there is a very good literature available from Dr. Marcos Sintra from Brazil, and he is very much an authority in that subject. And we Arthakranti, he has approached Arthakranti also very recently. There are elections, presidential elections taking place in Brazil this year, and they are once again, elections is a time where we can put forth policies and bank on policies and promote those, and possibly put those in manifesto also. So he's very much into doing that. And but there is a flip side also always. People, however, in minority, they are quite united, who are the beneficiaries of that current system in Brazil also, and they took every care that it becomes infamous during those 12-13 years of its implementation. And that has been a big challenge even for Dr. Marcos Sintra there.
Yeah.
And there is a clear division in Brazil. You can say 50%. I don't know. I will not tell you the percentage. I don't know. I'm not aware. But there is a clear division, like people in favor and people in opposition of the what they call there as CPMF, or the bank transaction tax.
Yeah. Even this particular tax is being promoted as micro tax in Switzerland. There is some movement going on in US, in Italy to promote bank transactions. So together internationally, they're like Dr. Marcos Sintra is trying to create an international forum through which this bank transaction tax can be pushed forward in India, in Brazil, and other countries.
Yeah, as she said, like there is one professor, Dr. Mark Schene in Switzerland, Zurich University. He is promoting that, and he is saying just 0.2% is going to get Switzerland some 5 times the revenue they are getting today in the current taxation system. That's why he calls it as a micro tax.
Understood, sir.
Yeah.
Sir, are there any adverse consequences if this BTT concept is brought into mainstream, or if the parallel economy is brought into mainstream revenue sources?
See, basically, if we give the example of, say, Dr. Marcos Sintra, he is a qualified economist himself from Harvard and such institutes. He has got 4 degrees from Harvard himself, and there is a line of economists which is in favor, but there is a line of economists which, for example, when we talk to our one of the finance secretaries last year, he says he doesn't believe that bank transactions can be a tax incidence. So it is not a matter of personal beliefs as such, we will say. It is something which is going to work for the country. It's a policy proposal which is a macro policy macro economy proposal. And basically what we say is that we presented to the government that in 2020 we came up with an advertorial where we said that in the backdrop of COVID pandemic, the government revenues were dropping. There was a lockdown. There were several challenges in front of the economy. And even our next year, we saw that the fiscal deficit reached crossed the 9% mark. In those circumstances, we presented to the government that, okay, what could be the way? We saw that it was an opportunity to go for some out-of-the-box solutions like bank transaction tax. And it can be a gradual introduction. So what we believe is that, for example, central government could withdraw their taxes on, say, petroleum products, which touches our lives every day. We have diesel intensive transport, we have diesel intensive energy production also, energy generation also. So if we get relief there by way of removal of central government taxes, and we introduce bank transaction tax to the tune of, say, 0.1%, 0.2%, and we gather data for, say, 3 months, 6 months. So the system will generate data for itself. Okay, what is the amount of revenue the government is getting? What is the economic behavior it is affecting across the country? And that data can give us an, can be used
can give some insights to see how things
this can be taken further. For example, based on that data, next level or in the next step, the state governments can withdraw their taxes on petroleum products, and then the bank transaction tax percentage can be taken from, say, 0.2% to say 0.3% to take care of the state government's share, like that.
Since it's an innovative proposal, there are no footprints of what are the outcomes. What we believe is like phase transition towards bank transaction tax. In this phase transition approach, we can understand the challenges also and accordingly come up with the complete bank transaction proposal implementation gradually.
But there are certain things, as I said earlier, we have to define for ourselves, okay, what is going to be your tax revenue target? If you are going to be happy with, say, 40-50 lakh crore rupees of revenue for a country of 130 crore people, you really need to see, and given the disparity, given the challenges, if we are going to be happy with that, maybe this current taxation system will say, we can say that it will work in the given fashion, in the given ways. But at some point of time, we will have to accept that, okay, what is the real target that we should be having, and to meet that, the current taxation system, we know their limitations. For example, simple examples. For example, when you say pay the health insurance or even the life insurance, the government is charging 18% GST on that. So is it such a premium thing that we are doing? Is it a luxury? So government is, eyeing these things for generating their revenues, which is no great thing, we can say. So there are better options available, and government can definitely look into that. And bank transaction tax is one of those things.
So, ma'am, how can
even you see that the number of taxpayers, for example, the last year's data, out of 130 crore people, about 7 crore income tax returns have been filed. So even take the case of, for example, income tax. So it cannot be that 130 crore people, out of that only you rest on say 7 crore people to generate the revenues. Of course, we know that there is a huge disparity in our country. Yeah.
So, ma'am, how can students and individuals contribute to be a part of ArthKranti?
Yeah.
So what we can do is like there are a lot of things which needs to be researched in Arthakranti. So MBA students in your institute can participate in this research exercise. Plus you are young guys, so you can start using YouTube and other social media platforms to spread this proposal so that it can see the day of the light of the day.
Certainly, ma'am. That's something that all the students of this campus would try to spread out. So, sir, ma'am, what would be this last thought that you would like to leave the audience with?
Yeah, basically, some of the things that we will like to highlight is that often we talk about when we look at the current reality, overall socio-economic reality in our country. Whether it is overcrowded cities and abandoned villages, or the poor infrastructure in various cities. Take any city, for example, I stay in Pune, whether it is Mumbai or anywhere you go. The state of infrastructure, why they are overcrowded, why people have to leave their places, the native places, and come to these 10, 15, 20 places in our country where only the economic activities are concentrated, why there is no decentralized development taking place, overall development taking place. Often and then we talk about corruption, then we talk about, okay, the Indians are like that, then we cannot have any real overall development taking place. We need to change our mindsets. Until we do that, it is not going to work, and things like that. However true that may be, we also need to look at the influence of the systems when we look at this whole picture. And the system has a role to play. It is not only not always about the individual's behavior or their nature or the way they want to behave or the way they want to do. It is also the system which has a role to play, and there will be certain systemic solutions which will have a big impact on the overall outcomes or the manifestations that we will see in the society.
Yeah.
So that role also needs to be understood, and ArthKranti proposals are in that domain.
Yeah. To add to Amod, what Arthakranti believes, that can be the last thought which we would like you to take forward is like Arthakranti believes that there is no point in just discussing the issues, complaining about the issues. We just need to find the solutions, or the always our approach should be towards finding the solution.
Being a solution provider, I mean, ArthKranti has always been believing in that, and it is engaged in that. So
no complaints, no allegations, find solutions. That can be the 3 points which we can say.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, ma'am and sir. I personally learned a lot from this session, especially regarding the state of our economy and its solutions, and how ArthKranti is trying to bring about communal change from grassroots to global level. It was really a fantastic and educational session. We deeply appreciate the opportunity to speak with you. I would like to thank Mr. Amod Phalke sir and Ms. Shilpa Yeolekar ma'am on behalf of entire Saturday 10 a.m. team and the student community for taking their precious time to interact with the students and faculties. Thank you, ma'am. Thank you, sir.
Yeah, we were also glad to interact with you. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
I too learned a lot about various ArthKranti proposals and how it plans to make India more stable. We would like to extend our gratitude to Dr. Akshay Malhotra, our director sir, our faculty mentors, Dr. Smita Bonde ma'am and Mr. Harshal Kotwal sir, for their constant support and guidance. Finally, we'll really like to express our heartfelt gratitude to make all the attendees of the today's session. Thank you for joining and helping this make a very successful event. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, ma'am.
Have a
Thank you,
good day.
sir.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Siddesh.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I mean, whoever comes up with any other questions or queries, we can be reached. Smita madam has our contact, and even Harshal sir has our contact. So, you can always reach us. You are very
So
much welcome.
we would definitely share your contacts with
Yeah.
each and every student and a member
Yeah.
of our campus, so that if they have any proposal or any idea, they can certainly reach to you. Thank you so much.
Yeah. Thank you so
Thank
much.
you.
Yeah.
Yeah. Have a great day. Bye.
Same to you, ma'am. Same to you, sir. Bye.